Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Joining us from Las Vegas, Maria Romano is a minister, wedding officiant, podcast host, author, and motivational speaker. Through her company, True Love Knots, Maria has officiated over 4,000 weddings and created courses on becoming officiated yourself. Maria, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello. How are you, Sanjay?
I'm great. I'm excited to have you on because we have not had anybody that is a wedding officiant before. And so I'm super interested in kind of this as a side hustle. But before we get there, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, just like a minute or two about you and kind of how you got to where you are now?
Well, I came to Las Vegas in 1976 and I met my husband, my late husband, in the rent-a-car industry, and we opened up our own rent-a-car company. So I actually had one of the first women-owned car rental companies in Las Vegas in the airport, which listen, let's face it, that made me feel great because, an industry that's so male dominated, and we sold it in 2010. And then unfortunately, my husband passed away in 2012. But I then transitioned from a male dominated industry, believe it or not, to another male dominated industry here right now, being a minister. Believe it or not, a lot of people some of them are still not used to a female officiating.
Yeah. You're just all about moving into industries where you're the oddball, but I love that. That's really what being an entrepreneur and a founder is really all about. Let's talk about the rental car piece just for a minute before we get into this other stuff. That's like a really capital heavy business to get into like that. Like, how did you guys manage that starting out fresh?
When we started with 7 cars. We're going back in the 70s, and it evolved. And you're right, it is a capital heavy company. You're 100%. When you need credit lines, and you make sure you have the revenue streaming in, and it's managing people, and you have moving inventory all the time, which is a liability. So those are issues. And as we grew, what happened was the larger companies dominated, and they do it well. Because they buy in bulk. They're able to provide, great rates, great services. Not that we couldn't. So we wound up selling to Hertz in 2010, which was probably the best decision. We were able to get out. But, I leave it up to the big guys. They do a great job. Now the big guys are complaining about Lyft and Uber. And there's another one out there.
Turo is one of them.
Turo is a big one. I was listening to a podcast about that. So it's changing. It's evolving.
I'm sure you sit back. It's been many years, but you spent so many years in that industry that you probably are watching some of these things and being like, oh man, if that had been around, like if Turo had been around when you started, or, like any of these other things, like it would probably radically have changed your business, or maybe made it easier, maybe made it harder. I don't know.
Actually would have made it maybe more profitable because of the, they don't have a lot of restrictions on the type of cars, but you still have, again, even though it's still moving, it's a moving, object, a car, you have to worry about people. So, people can't be replaced. Cars can. So that's the difference. Yeah. And it was definitely a very interesting industry when we started, when I left. And I still work with the American Car Rental Association. Every year they have me help them with their membership. And I love it. So it kind of keeps my finger in the pie on what's going on.
I love it. So you've now spent, I'm doing the math, over 40 years as a founder entrepreneur. Was the car rental thing the first thing that you'd done entrepreneurial? And was there entrepreneurs in the family that you got to watch? That's what made you comfortable of making this move? Or or was there something else?
Well, my late husband, of course, was very entrepreneurial, and my grandfather, on my father's side, started a construction company. Actually, it was brick and stone. They were actual bricklayers in New York. So my dad, of course, he had his sons working for him. Then they sold, and then my dad moved to Vegas. I came with him, and my stepmom in the '70s, and he actually was an entrepreneur in pool tables and a few other things. And yeah, that's how. So I've been around that. I like working for myself. I like the idea of making my schedule, having the time if I need to do something. And it's difficult. And, we've been there when you think about this, being able answering to somebody else. So that's tough for me, I have to tell you.
Yeah, I can understand that. Okay, so you started the car rental company, exited it, and then at what point did you decide? How many years after that was it that you decided to start this, and what caused you to want to start this?
Actually, it was the same year. So a little backstory.
You just can't stop, can you? It's just like you got to keep going. I love it.
You know what? No, I actually when we sold our rental car company, I knew that I needed to still do something. And I wanted to keep myself busy and occupied. My late husband had a heart transplant in 1997. Yes, I say that again, a heart transplant. So I always knew we were on borrowed time. We were very fortunate. We were married 33 years when he passed away. And I knew I wanted something to keep me busy. And I went to a wedding ceremony in Las Vegas, over at the Las Vegas Country Club. And there was a woman was performing the ceremony. I said, you know what? I think I want to find out and see. I would like to do that. So I did some research in 2010. After we sold the car rental company, I actually got my license. And in Nevada at the time, in Las Vegas, you had to be affiliated with a religious organization, either online or brick and mortar here. So I received my ordination online. You don't need that anymore. No, now you can pretty much get your license anywhere in the country. It's very easy. So that's when I started. I put together a CD of a mock wedding, a little bio, some references about who I am, because it is an industry, where it's about the customer experience. And I went out on the strip, pounded the pavement, and crickets. Sunday crickets. But after some persevering, I went back and I got hired at the Venetian and the Flamingo. And the reason I got hired and we're outside, we're vendors. I said I would do commitment ceremonies because at the time, same gender wasn't recognized. It wasn't legal. So that's how I broke in. So fast forward to today, what I've learned, and now I've performed close to over 1,000 weddings a year, which is great. Yeah.
Wow. 1,000 weddings a year. That's like almost 2 a day, 3 a day.
That condensed towards, I try to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we condense them. But
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I keep a few clients. I perform them in helicopters. We go to the Grand Canyon in a helicopter. I mean, it is so fun. So fun, I have to tell you.
Wow. That is amazing. So you started pounding the pavement and crickets. Was there anything like when you started then, was there anything that made you nervous about making this leap that you were worried about?
No, the only thing that I just wanted to be able to perform weddings. So that made me nervous. Like, how am I going to do this? Like, you can put it out there. Oh, I'll do free weddings, right? That doesn't always get you the clients. So I even looked for somebody to help train me, to take me under their wings, and nobody wanted to do that because I was then interfering with their territory. It was, yeah. And that happens, it's like I said, it's a big business here in not anymore. It's so different because I'm now part of the Las Vegas Wedding Chamber of Commerce and completely different makeup than it was then. But those are things,
Wait. Did you just say the Las Vegas Wedding Chamber of Commerce?
We have yes, I'm on the board. Absolutely.
Wow. I had no idea that there was a Chamber of Commerce just for a specific industry in Vegas. That's amazing.
So let me give you a little bit of information. So actually the wedding industry generates to Las Vegas $2.7 billion a year in revenue. 2.7. And that's destination weddings when they come in and money being spent in all areas. So it's that. So really, when you think about it, all those room nights, all that entertainment, right? That gambling, going on excursions, shows, restaurants. So that's what it. So it's a big industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I want to rewind a little bit. So you started pounding the pavement, and like all of us, I think, know that people go to Vegas for a quick wedding, or they go there, get drunk, and get married. A la Ross and Rachel on Friends, right? So it's this what was your challenge there in terms of getting your first wedding? And then the second part of that is now looking back, 4,000, 5,000, however many weddings in, like thinking about how you do them now versus that very first one you did. Like, how much of a difference is it in terms of your experience and the experience that you provide to your clients?
Well, then of course I was concerned because, you want to build up revenue. You're spending a bit of money out there on different websites, promoting yourself.
Right.
And if you don't have the reviews, you're not getting the reviews, you're not going to get the client. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So
Right.
for me, I changed my business model where I actually am an outside vendor for about 4 to 5 companies, and I limited myself, and that's where I generate most of my business. I do private weddings. Now, today, it's a lot easier, fast forward, because of social media. And social media is your friend, and most of the time it's free. It's free, and that's what I tell everybody, which is part of what I provide in my training, is utilize that, because you know what? Couples are going to go to, they want to know, first of all, you have a website, because that's your brick and mortar. And also, what are you posting on social media? Is it frequently? Is it infrequently? It says a lot about you. Are you current? Are you current with the trends? So that is a way. And you can, of course, there's Wedding, a Wire, there's The Knot. There's several websites you can advertise on and getting reviews, but you can also have those posted on Google as well, and then put them on your website too. So, and I tell people, and you want to be known, also go out in the business community and get on every podcast that you can.
There you go. Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder, like, if you can kind of think about somebody that's starting out like you now versus how you had to start out, right? When you started out, there was no social media. So it made it harder for you to hustle and get clients. And now it seems like, okay, yeah, there's this easy way, but it's not just simple just because you have social media, right? It's still a lot of work. And I think for a lot of people, you feel like, hey, I can just put something out there and then the people will come. And I don't think that's true necessarily. And I think there's this false dichotomy of like social media makes it easier. So how do you think about that? Like, if you were starting from scratch now, how would you approach building your business?
Well, first of all, myself personally, I would be doing a lot of live on my social media. And I'd be doing a lot of live talking about how passionate I am about love and about being part of a couple's special day, and how important that is to be able to share their message with them, the couple, as what they perceive to be a wonderful ceremony, and their guest as well. So I would definitely start off at that point in time talking about that. And again, I would go out there and I would be networking with different networking opportunities. So if, for example, in Las Vegas, we have the Wedding Industry Professional Association, is known as WIPA. Throughout the country, you have the American Bridal Consultant Society. So they're all over the U.S. Actually, they're all over the U.S. You have WIPA, you have, and then you also have other social or event companies as well. Getting out there and getting people to know you as well, because event planners will book you. They want to know how you show up, what you say. Okay. And I always tell people, when you show up at these events, you're still a professional person. You're your own brand. Make sure you don't drink too much, right? If you're a drinker, my rule is you don't drink. And also don't talk about drama or what's going on in your life. They don't want to hear that. You want to talk about what you're doing, how you're current. Hey, I found this new trend. And I see that couples now are not just sharing a glass of wine during the ceremony, they're now doing shots. I'm just something else, just talking about what's going on in the industry. Or they're replacing flower girls with flower dudes. Have you seen that one yet?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that. That's interesting.
That's where a flower dude walks down the aisle with a tight t-shirt, a friend of yours, and a little fanny pack, and they throw out petals and they dance. And it's kind of like a version of an overweight Tiny Tim. If you remember who Tiny Tim was, I'm dating myself. But I think that those are the ways that I would start off. But again, showing that you have a passion for what you do. That's what it is. Also, on another note, Sanjay, I believe there's only 4 states that this is not, it's not the reciprocal. But if you are a notary, you also can perform wedding ceremonies. So for notaries, this is a great side hustle as well. Yes.
Oh, wow. There you go. So let's talk a little bit about kind of managing the business and the stress of it, right? So, when you're doing your own thing like this, and you've been doing it for a while, right, with the rental cars and now this, there's a lot of stress because you're the boss, but you're also the boss, right? So you're responsible for all of that. And then I think for you, there's this other layer, and you kind of touched on it. The stress, weddings are not always stress-free. There is the drama that's happening in the weddings themselves and the stress of all that. So how do you manage both pieces of that? The stress of managing the business and then the stress of the events themselves?
I have to tell you, I wish I would have had somebody teaching me like I teach today, because I would have I've learned how to manage stress, but it didn't happen overnight. I mean, it takes time to develop that demeanor about you. And that you have to remember that if you have somebody coming at you, that all of a sudden they seem like they're a little bit more aggressive, and you have to remember not to react. So the difference between an action and a reaction is a hesitation. But there's a word that I use that Ed Milet used it as in his book and on a podcast called equanimity. And now that's what I use, which means how to remain calm under stress, duress, or chaos. And I have to tell you, lately there have been some interesting situations just with couples, or, trying to get to a wedding on time, and there's a lot of traffic, and just having to just take that internal gnaw in your stomach, right? I'm sure you have. How does it feel when you get that? And it feels like there's a knife, and just breathing through it. But it does take time. And there are things that you can do things that you can't control. And make sure your phone is always charged up. If something's going on, you're delayed maybe for a wedding. I am a stickler. You have to show up on time. Must always on time. I mean, unless something happens, that's it. Yeah. That you cannot foresee. That to me is the biggest thing. Showing up prepared.
Yeah.
You don't want to look like a hot mess. It's true.
That's true in all of life, I think. But so looking back on 4,000 plus weddings, how many have you ever been late to? 5,000? 5,000 weddings. Okay.
There was only one wedding that I had miscalculated. I was rushing from the Flamingo Hilton. I was going all the way up the 215 to a country club. And I was actually there. I was there on time, the actual ceremony time. But fortunately, I had told them, I said, listen, I have another commitment. You moved, and they had moved the wedding up. So when you have something like that, other than that, no. But, there are times when I have put something down. I forget to put something in my calendar. I had that happen a couple of times. Thank God my clients love me. And thank God I don't live too far from the strip. Okay. So I'm able to get there right away. But now we have so much construction going on in Las Vegas. We have Formula One coming in. We have Super Bowl. So I really prepare. Now I pace myself differently. And you need to prepare for that. And you have to factor your time in when you're in this industry, where you're traveling to.
Right. Yeah. These are not ones that you can just zoom in on, right? You've got to be there in person. So it's a different thing. I want to ask you, the last few years have been very tough for hospitality-based businesses because of the pandemic. How did that affect you, and how did you deal with that kind of through the entire pandemic?
Well, the pandemic definitely did, put a damper on some of the industry. I remember that I had several weddings on St. Patrick's Day, and all of a
Uh-huh.
sudden I got these cancellations, and I heard that they were, we had this issue with this virus and so on. And I figured, okay, they closed everything down. I said, only be for 2 weeks. Okay. Well,
You and all the rest of us, we all said the same thing.
okay, was I so naive? However, we closed down for 6 weeks, the actual marriage license bureau. We opened up because we were able to get that reversed because it was necessary, because there were other municipalities throughout the country that were not issuing marriage licenses. It wasn't a necessity. We did it. There were people that still needed to get married for insurance purposes, whatever it was, maybe. Or they were in the military and they were getting called to leave. So they wanted to, so it opened up, and I, actually 2020 was the year that it actually started getting busier for me, because first of all, I was vaccinated. There were some ministers that weren't vaccinated. I don't have any health issues, so I was able to get there. I very, very proficient on Zoom, any type of virtual. So I started when I had doing wedding ceremonies with a couple in front of me, and they had their family on Zoom. I would have them mute their mic, unmute their mic, help me pronounce them, present their daughter that they couldn't be there, but they still felt. So that made a big difference. And I actually did, I want to say I performed close to 900 weddings. That was my big year that started.
Wow.
It started for me. So but again, I was fortunate. It was in good health. I was able to do that.
Right.
So not, that, and they wanted you to be vaccinated, a lot of the different properties.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great that you were able to kind
It's
of
an
fill that
anomaly. It
void.
doesn't happen everywhere. We know that. Yeah.
Right. And let's hopefully, hopefully like the rest of our lifetimes, we don't get this again, because I think all of us are exhausted from any of that stuff. Is there anything that you do in terms of regular routines that helps you stay grounded? Things that you do every day, like do you sleep at a certain time or exercise, or is there anything else like that is like a must for you in terms of making sure that you stay kind of grounded and focused on what you want to accomplish?
Well, I believe that there's nothing that makes you feel better when you get up in the morning and you're clear headed. And it has to do with what you're doing the day before and what you're consuming, whether you're consuming something, putting it in your body, or whatever you're reading or whatever you're doing. So if you're watching 3 episodes of Law and Order before you go to sleep, that you don't necessarily go to sleep with a great focus in your mind. So what I do is it starts really for me the night before. And the night before is when I put together my routine, and I actually put on an app, a meditation app. I shut down, and it's actually shut down near my nightstand. So I listen to meditation. I have my puppies. I'm a widow. And I start off with that and being grateful. And I have to tell you, I have a journal. I write in it. In the morning when I get up, my first thing are my puppies that I take care of. And I do have my coffee, but I do meditate. I listen to bird sounds. So bird sounds, if you don't have live birds, for at least a minute or two, will put you in a mood. And they boost your mood, your hormones, for about 8 hours. They make you feel happy. So for me, I exercise. I mean, those are things that I do. That's my prerequisite. But again, I have changed my whole lifestyle, because it's very easy when you're out there networking. You can consume a little alcohol. You don't really feel great the next day. Yeah. You don't eat the right things. And especially if I have a heavy wedding load on the weekends, for example. So I'll have 10 weddings, usually maybe at one chapel. I have to be ready, because Sanjay, if I mispronounce a couple's name, don't pronounce their name, the right name, I omit something, there are no do-overs. Think about it. You cannot have everybody come back. Photography, videography, guest. So I have to be ready. There are no dress rehearsal has to be doing it right.
Yeah. And the couple is going to remember that too, right? That's going to be the thing that sticks out to them. Like, I wish this had gone right. And so you don't want to be a part of the thing that they wish had gone differently. Okay. So thinking back now, I mean, you've got a long career as a founder, which I love that. Going back, if you were able to go back in time, is there anything that you would do differently based on what you know now?
Well, listen, let's face it. As we go through life with experience, we would love to be able to take what we had now and bring it back to then. And actually, one of the things is I think it's important to have a lot of mentors in your life and finding your passion. So the rent-a-car business I fell into. Was it my passion? No. I found my passion loving what I do. I created, as you know, my digital course, and also I officiate weddings and I speak about love. So I personally would have loved to have fallen into this sooner. But when I think about it, my life experiences brought me to today to where I am so that I am better at what I do. But surround yourself with people where you're going to grow. Find your mentors, find your coach. That's going to make a big difference. And that's something that I started doing over the last few years, but I didn't do that when I was definitely younger. We think we know it all.
I love that. So if there's somebody that was in front of you that's thinking about taking the leap and launching a side hustle or taking their side hustle into a full-time business, what advice would you give them?
Well, find out, first of all, do some research on whatever side hustle you're looking to get involved with. I think that's the first thing. Making sure that you have enough capital, depending upon what you need in order to do that. In this particular business, you don't need that much. It's very little. However, there are other industries, making sure you have access to capital and for growth. Because sometimes for growth is you need to have more money. That's something else. And then also, understanding that you're not going to be an overnight success, that that's something that you just need to persevere. And every day you get out there and always being relevant if the industry's changing with whatever you're doing. It's like technology. Now they're talking about AI, right? Chat GPT. So now if you're not utilizing things, depending upon what you're doing, do that. So, and you know what? Take the leap, because at the end of the day, what's important is you want to make sure that you're doing the things you love, provided it's not hindering maybe your family or whatever, financially. But you got to try to take that chance, even the part-time. That's what's great today. You can have multiple streams doing different side hustles, and then find your passion and then just go with it.
Yeah, I love that. It's great advice. Maria, where can our listeners find and connect with you?
Oh, you can find me, first of all, on social media under True Love Knots. And of course, it's True Love, and the Knots is KNOTS. And you can reach out to me, Maria at True Love Knots at gmail.com, or True Love Knots, Maria at trueloveknots.com, my website. And definitely, I'd love to hear if anybody has questions, just even if they're getting married and they want to just know something. I'm your girl. Reach out to me.
I love it. Thanks for coming on today, Maria.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. It was such a wonderful, wonderful experience. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. That's HISCOX.com. And if you have a story you want to hear on this podcast, please visit hiscox.com/share your story. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find me on Twitter at Sanjay, that's SANJAY, or on my website at sanjayparekh.com.